only copy the menu comes right on the screen.
You just hold it right. I only got 4.
5 seconds.
Only need
Renee!
back there before I make history.
Good evening from PAP, Public Access Poetry. Tonight was supposed to be our Thanksgiving special. It's not, but we're going to have it anyway. And we still have 2 jive turkeys with us anyway. And our first reader is Michael Brownstein. Michael?
Hi. Hi, folks. Merry Christmas. I've never been asleep in a television studio before, so I'm going to start off without any sound. Well, I'm still going to start off without any sound. I'm going to read the story called The Immense Jurgens. Okay. The immense Jurgens stayed in his room and sulked. His Dance of the Carpenters, a confrontation art piece in which men and women dressed as river carp boarded city buses and confronted the passengers with T-squares and hammers, had been a qualified success, to say the least. He had instructed his actors, who he liked to call his collaborators, that mere presentation of the implements of their trade to the bus passengers was enough, the heart of the piece being this demonstration of the phenomenon of distance. So that confrontation of any kind ran contrary to the concerns of the artist. The carpenter fisher were to restrict their movements to dancing lightly up and down the aisle while displaying the tools of their trade. Simply pick a passenger and show him your tool, he had said. When the bus has gone 6 city blocks, pull the cord and leave. 8 carpenters were chosen from among acquaintances in the neighborhood, and it was there Jurgens felt in retrospect that he had gone wrong. They were artists too. Jurgens dressed them in beautiful fish costumes made from thousands of tiny bronze aluminum discs, laboriously sewn together on sturdy burlap frames. Their face masks, spray-painted rose and freckled with gold, had wonderful long whiskers and bulging blue and white eyeballs. Each fish carried a tool.
Okay.
And the selection of the 8 tools had been a source of satisfaction for the immense artist, Jurgens. A hammer, a T-square, a bubble balance, an electric drill, a saw, a can of coffee, a pair of white canvas gloves, and a big swatch of kitchen linoleum. He had rented a van in which he deposited the carpenter fish on the corner of Bleecker and Broadway to catch the downtown bus. It was a bright sunny afternoon, and their fish scales glittered dramatically in the sun. Each carpenter was given a token, but his friends had betrayed him. No sooner had they filed on the bus and each selected a passenger, most of whom turned out to be Chinese kitchen workers just off work on their way to an annual reunion of Chinese kitchen workers somewhere on Mott Street, then things had started to go wrong. The immense Jurgens was not on the bus, of course. He was following the bus in the rented van, but he learned what happened soon after. Apparently the bus driver, a middle-aged black man, had left the carpenters on the bus without paying the slightest attention to their costumes, indeed without acknowledging them in any way. And the last carp on the bus took it in his head to resent this. As the bus moved back into the traffic on Broadway, the carp had leaned over until his whiskers blocked the driver's vision and had shouted, "I am a carpenter. This is a tool of my trade." He waved the piece of kitchen linoleum in the man's face. The driver, reacting suddenly as if he saw them all for the first time, let out a guttural shout and peremptorily ordered them all off his bus, simultaneously beating off carp number 8 with one arm while trying to steer the bus toward the curb with the other. The carp lost his balance and lurched against the driver as the vehicle shot sideways. At the very same moment, a taxi that had been behind the bus and overtook it on one side decided to cross in front of it and turn right off Broadway, accelerating steadily as it did so. But the taxi driver swerved suddenly back toward the center of the street to avoid a jaywalker who had emerged from between 2 parked cars. The bus driver slammed on his brakes, but not before he had caught the taxi between his bus and one of the parked cars, narrowing the entire taxi by at least a foot. Meanwhile, the other carp had not been idle. As the bus weaved and lurched to a stop, accompanied by the screech of metal being crushed, all of them had lost their balance, tripping over the awkward burlap frames just as they had disengaged their tools from their pockets. The terror-stricken kitchen workers, who a moment before had been sleepily turning the pages of Chinese newspapers, found themselves in the embrace of huge squirming gold carp, that seemed to be attacking them with hammers. One pale, overworked cook's assistant especially went berserk, as he looked up just in time to see a long metal bit from an electric drill pass entirely through his bicep and lodge itself in the wall of the bus above his seat. His mouth filled with the taste of burlap and metallic fish scales, and for a moment he thought he was back in the cramped, suffocating hold of the ship that had smuggled him across the Pacific Ocean 10 months before. Screaming like a banshee and losing all sense of his surroundings, the cook leaped to his feet with eyes starting out of his head, and in the process left a good part of his upper arm quivering on the wall. When he turned and saw this, and looked down at the blood racing out of the wound, his shrieks redoubled, and he lunged toward the carp sprawled out on the seat and tore its head off. He then began punching and clawing at that person's face, and finally closed his hands around his throat and spasmodically choked the man to death. The 7 other carp, paralyzed by shock, looked on in horror. As the bus ground to a halt, the carp found themselves being beaten with their tools by a dozen angry, fearful Chinamen. The burlap sack in which they were dressed, the burlap sacks, made it impossible for them to defend themselves, although it absorbed most of the blows. Before they had a chance to escape, the bus driver had leaped out the front door, sealing them all inside while he ran along Broadway in search of a cop. Several minutes later, the cop, the immense Jurgens, and the black bus driver, his face contorted by outrage, stood on the sidewalk looking through the windows at the pandemonium inside the bus, which appeared like nothing so much as an aquarium during a hurricane. With the large, delicately colored carp, their whiskers and flanks torn, swooping from side to side to avoid the blows of small, delirious men dressed in T-shirts. The cop kept looking up and down the length of the bus in disbelief, as if searching for some corner of the action he was watching, which would make sense. Finally, the driver pried the front door open, and as Jurgens started to lift his immense bulk onto the bus, the cop clamped an arm on his shoulder and pulled him back to the sidewalk. "Where do you fit in?" the cop asked. And it was then that Jurgens knew his problem was just beginning. Jumping up and down on the sidewalk, not 10 feet from them, his cap in his hand, a taxi driver cursed and swore, pointing toward the fender of his demolished heap. The bus driver wrestled the first of the combatants off the bus, a crazed and bloody Chinaman whose frantic contortions it took all 3 men some minutes to subdue. The immense Jurgens found himself sitting on the man's chest while the cop and the driver led 8 distraught river carp onto the sidewalk. Jurgens looked up at his friends with sad, reproachful eyes and didn't say a word. Another cop arrived, waving his nightstick, but was soon put to work directing traffic. From out of the manufacturing lofts around them, black and Puerto Rican day workers, just getting off their shift, poured down into the street. They soon surrounded the city bus, laughing and chattering, producing transistor radios and cans of soda pop and beer, wisecracking as the desultory group of huge fish was lined up against the squad car and handcuffed one by one. Thank you. I am going to smoke this match. When did we start?
Just keep reading.
Well, I was thinking of keeping reading, and then I thought, perhaps I should ask. Here's a very little poem. This one is called, I'm switching from a story that I just read. I don't want to, I just want to clue you folks in. A story that I just read. And now we're going to this poem. It's called Personnel Poem. It's a short poem. The other day, I ran into myself on the street. I knew it was me. Same face, same pants, same shirt. I wonder what I was thinking. I got in my car and someone already was behind the wheel. It was me. When we got home, I opened the door, and there I was. This poem was written out in Colorado, where I've been living the last year and a half. And it's called Crimson Clouds. A poem called Crimson Clouds. No S-O. No S-O. This is called Crimson Clouds. It's a poem, and it goes like this. Vitamin subsidiaries release oblong blonde boulders. Wind blowing down the narrow canyons like an ironing board, where tennis angels check out sore Bigfoots lapping oceans of alcohol. And like a volt of pure lightning, she does nothing now but dream into tiny macaroni shells, resurrecting themselves in and out of fame, that whirls across our faces outside Xerox restaurants on the second floor, she said, collapsing into the drink. So then what are we doing here? Heavy boulders fell on her then. She saw glorious crimson clouds steal across the mountaintops like angels' feet on fire. And a steel blue pickup truck sat down on the curb beside her, whispering her name up the pearly spiral of a pink conch shell that scores of pampered infants picked up in blue, skirting the edge of vision. Although we are still very far from the long salty sea where sunsets are made and black angels design sleeker skateboards out of chocolate lame. And I'm looking for a hand.
You take a foot?
I'll settle for 2 minutes.
Stop camping and read.
Am I camping? 2 minutes? This is from a poem in progress. Knob that used to shine, a double cherry blossom, no longer except in my memory. A rather keen little wind, isn't it? A wind from the north, a smooth wall, a rough-textured drapery. Creatures on whose fur kept a trace of my passage. My own creatures except for a few friends. Human sense of smell. Sideways dance common to all beasts. The mental hearing that I can project. The blue gurnard with the martlet's wings that rises in flight from the waves. Wooden steps crept down into our memory of events. Barrels and pipes extended in all directions, which I desired once and got. The face, the limbs, the index from head to foot. The things you said to me, arranged like pieces of toast in a rack. Not flat, but curved, softly round your dreaming head, because still in me it bides, as I drift without thought of going back. We disappeared inside a ball of grass. When we came out, things looked different. To pump heat energy from one place to another, long sections of pipe had been installed. 3 electrons were moved to the left. The symmetry was destroyed at last. Barefoot among the rubber-covered snakes, we walked and tried to clear our heads. The first white caps blooming like marguerites, elegantly and aggressively slender. And now I bid you all a good night. Sleep tight. Sleep tight. Don't bite. And thank you.
That was Michael Brownstein, and now Jim Brodey.
Snagged by the audio. This is the manuscript of my latest book. It'll be out within 2 weeks. It's called Piranha Yoga. Here's 14-minute slabs of Piranha Yoga. It's called In the Grand Manner for Ann Waldman. What the fuck? Where's my youth gone to? I'm 33 already. Big wrinkles on my huge tummy. Peking tea bags around my eyes. When I turned 29, I knew what mortality meant and turned another corner into the avenue of my dreams. "Stop taking drugs!" yells my conscious mind. Damp canyons rise up all yellow and red, where ages have taken their toll in the rock, and little streams of consciousness run wild with several new hungers. My newly awakened body sits in a full lotus position, knees sexily curved to join chest at the neck. I am meditating, allowing all thought to hiss as it leaves the peaceful brain smoldering without any images. And I fail to write a word, not a note rises to replace the smoking hole where language once bubbled like molten pools on a landscape of flaming ash. And I am cloaked in my powers as the stars sing of remedial glories that once tasted truths. As the homeless tramp dreams of hamburgers, so I rose with a taste of the water lily in my gullet. The antelopes have pissed on my bedroll again, and I'm undressing with the radio on. Where the hell is my youth gone? Yesterday, I sat next to a girl born in 1962. All night, I lay awake thinking, do I have the guts to hitchhike to California one last time? This is called Little Light for Eric Dolphy. There's a little light over the Con Ed Tower, Eric, and it's you, too bright to be a star. Total capacity brightens a still, raining sky, and I'm on standby, waiting for your horn to come crashing down on Manhattan. Tonight, in the bathtub, listening to your ancient sides, rolling over, scrubbing my back with your delicate clarinet breeze. Oh, so blue. The rain beating on my eyelids, big, drowsy drops shaped like coins that lay their own tattoo on my palms as I, too heavy to rise beyond as you do in your uniqueness, while the soot-tinted noise of 2 full streets echoes, and I pick up the quietly diminishing soap and do myself again. And right now it's noon in the tropics as a great big hand fondles the cherubs that cruise this ashen light. A big whooshing sigh knocks a fleshy heave towards what snow glides in on a severed tongue, still singing, so beautifully deranged, and squeezing some more difficult light to dry my glazed flesh with some of your happy brilliance. That is called Comrades in Bed. Hey, you comrades in bed, dig this! There's a new Mexican translation of our former pal, Vlad Mayakovsky, and a picture that'll just scare the hell out of you total gold brickers. Vlad lays the good news upon us all American boys, and right now here he comes swinging worlds in the balance, infinitesimal galaxies, see-through testicles, all green-shaded and bulging, huge, rattle, round, on a tongue that's nothing but flames. Hey, get up and prepare to illuminate humanity with a vortex of ideas, images, and visions that sizzle, penetrate, and zoom off into stars behind the old redhead simple human husk. The saxophone attached from birth to face wails out an opening splatter of tunes. Lefty Panda undoes his pants. A rendezvous takes place right under our noses. There's fireworks galore. Even a temple going up brings pleasure to their eyes. Hey, wake up! Break through the narcotic daze that keeps pleasure a la carte like TV hanging around the eyeballs of millions. I pull at my centuries at my trousers that act as though they've got a mind of their own. The beast flesh keeps on crawling back, goes crazy with bug-bitten desire for poet blood strobe that never makes it into the papers. Steve Levine sat next to a bodiless delirium 14 stops on the F train. The air was filled with Soapsuds romance. Cool bodies from Brooklyn flowed in. Brooklyn, home of Gila Monster bliss, haven of the scowling debris. A perpetual rainbow of radioactive soot hangs over your downtown towers. I can see it. And Mrs. Levine's favorite son, slow dancing behind cherry-tinted shades, mind tuned to interstellar overdrive, blissful as he tap dances above the heads of rush hour. The traffic of your sleep improves his chances. Hey, unemployed citizens of the voidy realms who linger twixt silver sheets with dreamy art students, thirsting for satisfaction information as I plow cream-filled meadows in the cervex of all time, simultaneous with our identical future. Now for something a bit more commonplace to you androids out there. This is called Breathless Creeley. Denote the pun in your Black Mountain guidebooks. Breathless Creeley took off his hands off the steering wheel. We were on the way to Pantaluma, driving there in Bob's car. We were going around the Bolinas Lagoon, doing about 60 miles per hour. Then he began slamming his fists on the steering wheel, rocking side to side, flooring it. He turned his entire body towards me and reached over and embraced me as the car sped forward at blur speed, ignoring both an immediate turn in the road and the oncoming truck. During the kiss, we floated in space. He was overjoyed. I asked, couldn't we go any faster? And he proclaimed us both masters of the void, alive! Where am I now? He yelled over the din of colliding minutes. 3 gulps of some magic wine smiling into a Dixie cup, Bob sat hardly talking in the Irons' perfectly blue wooden kitchen, while Evan gives me her typical, I knew you in 1967, Jim Brodey smile, as Greg shuffled through smiling, and Tom Veach ambled in, meat phantoms hanging golden voices around our ears. And Peter Rowan's guitar smiles like buttercups creeping up slow through fresh manure, big, buzzing flies in sunlight. The dead shine on from an ancient web core on the floor. The music irrigates spaces, limitless proportions. Bob is rubbing his own words into a fine lint via another shining gallon, that which has splashed over entire front of his few remaining clothes. He continues to finger each word with his tongue, and smiling, that smile that continues to smile till it's well off his face, and never does culminate in anything less than a miracle. For Philip Whalen, I get no sleep, and it's not raining, though when it does rain, I don't want to sleep, because I like that sound on the cabin roof. When it rains, I do sleep a lot, because it puts me at my ease like nothing else save blowjobs, which we call in polite society head. When it rains, I usually think of the Jap film Yojimbo, because in that picture, it rained a lot, and it was very artistic rain. I'm jabbering again, brain on paper, poem on tongue that extends down body through fingers and fits quite remarkably on the page. It's a sort of elective process, this writing. Now I live in Woodstock, but it makes no diff to me. Rain or shine, the poems are fine, and sleep ain't deep. It's free. I sense I should read something small, but not too inconspicuous. Let's see. 5 minutes? 5 minutes, okay. 5 minutes, I read the dirty stuff. Poem for sex fiends. I kind of wanted to write a poem kind of like in the tradition of John Wiener's, only using my sensibilities, you know. But, you know, his direct tradition from, you know, the maniacs of the past who tasted truth in the wine of boys. This is called Poem for Sex Fiends. The doors are opening on honeysuckle and lilac beige as a salamander crawls over my asshole. Little indigestible thoughts, tokes of pure bronze that boogers razz as a moon glistens in creamy clown mouth. Esoteric images that defy the words I see on your forehead. Knocking on heaven's door with the number 34, Louisville slugger like Victor Mature had, and I still wag when the vulva purrs. 37,000 reasons to cry. 6'2" human bullfrog flinched. Dust-splattered blood stains called gravy stains by children overtake microscopic bile puffs. Masterpieces stay put awaiting trial by goofball. Glazy eyeball, inflamed sooty liquid pore, bulging chronic additional gray tinge. Wet appearing, actually newest rubberized froggy feet, gyrating to television on ear gland shrill. Sweet as air from an asshole of time when it repeats its only job. Repeats its only job. Only job. So Johnny Otis and Ed Sanders could do a real funny thing with that. I jack off on the government. I jacked off on the government last night, twisting in dream bed sheets of solid electricity lather. Great dragon-faced monitors police my hospital corners, aching to catch my feverish screams, squirming out of my sweaty pores on fire with chanting. Squashed down rabbis brandishing Phillips screwdrivers and bowing to no one but Lord Vishnu in human drag. I call upon heaven, let down your valves, so I may climb up the golden ponytail and vanish into your vapory realms. Can't seem to get away from these sexy ones. Or perhaps sexy pronounced with a different, what is it, suffix? What's the end thing? I forget. Fixative. Je ne sais quoi. Well, wet homework inspired by the poet Brad Gooch. Not necessarily by, this latest book he's got, the Daily News, promo, but, from this reading I saw of his last year where he wrote these wonderfully majestic poems about cleansing hatred by peeing on guys' faces. Wet homework. Suck out that wicked weakness in the veins. Mental halos gather in dark, wiggling beneath popper surge. Cold sweat trickles down through shivering melon ass, draping themselves over the noses of awakened demons in the bodies of solid citizens weaned on boxcar rough stuff. Symphonic shrieks that unload our most prized inhibitions. Clenched holiness, the full moon bears perfumed on an altar of spike, silken dock, and crumbling red rust iron, kissing daytime tension off maniacal faces that soften as the tongue produces wondrous photoplays sprinkled with sure hints of glistening dazed-out nirvana. When pinch stun clears the sinus to whip, wine groan yelp and force the tongue to discover newest blonde oils that spurt forth to help lubricate our dark toil. Okay, take an enema and go to sleep. Shove a wishbone up your asshole.
That was the infamous Jim Brodey, a very calm reading, and Michael Brownstein read first. I don't know when this show is being shown, but I hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving. The men in the white coats should be coming soon.
We are the men in the white coats. The lady also in the white coat.
Thank you.